Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how top experts sell their ideas, their value, and their services. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want better clients, bigger deals, and higher fees. Well, my friends, you are in for a real treat, which I say that with some reservation because 99.9% of our guests, you definitely want to work with them. You definitely want to hire them. You definitely want to be in their sphere, except not so much with Ken Yager. And he will tell you why. So Ken, Newpoint Advisors Corporation, CEO, Grand Poobah, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, David.
So, of course, we'll burst the suspense bubble right now.
Sure.
You and your firm are turnaround experts for small companies who are in trouble, small to mid-size, and we'll talk about that transition here in a moment as well. But give us the snapshot of your professional journey that brought you to the work that you're doing today, and what were some interesting pit stops along the way?
All right. So I've always had a fascination with the turnaround space. And I can even point to a book my father gave me when I was a teenager, at that awkward age where he's asking you, what do you want to do when you grow up? So I've known about this space, but I was also a finance and accounting person. And I did those things with large corporations out of college. But then I kept getting the tug to the turnaround world. And so at this point, I've been at it for 35 years. At one point in that early career stage, I thought fancied myself maybe even an investor in distressed companies, and actually took actions to go there. And best I can put it, I got my ever-loving ass kicked, and it hurt. And I looked at that situation and I said, I knew what I was doing and this sucked. What is this like for the hundreds of thousands of companies every year that go out of business? What are those entrepreneurs going through, and what are they thinking? What is that problem? How do they not see it? How could they avoid it? How could it be that bad when it happens? Because there are things that you can do to make it worse. And so I've turned my career towards more to that direction. And 11 years ago, sometime after, let's say, fine-tuning my skills as a turnaround person, started Newpoint, and really to focus exclusively on, as you said, the smaller businesses that get into trouble, who don't have a consistent backstop. They don't have the money to pay for the extremely expensive people that run around in this industry, who help the big corporations. And that's sort of the journey at a high level.
So this is a very interesting market, for a whole bunch of reasons. And I'm just going to start peppering you with questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, this is like, I'm going to use a totally different analogy from a different industry. Let's say that it is a leadership consultancy, and people have to admit that they have terrible leadership, or it's a sales training firm, and that VP of sales has to admit, yeah, we're not really that great at the sales piece, so we need to go and get some outside help. When a company is struggling, the CEO's job is to be cheerleader in chief, captain of the ship, standing on the bridge, painting the vision. When they say to themselves, I can't get us out of this one. I don't have the skills, the objectivity, the infrastructure we're in big bad trouble. They raise their hand, they raise the white flag, they say, Ken Yager, come and rescue this ship. How do you get past that ego part where it's going to be a founder, it's going to be a CEO, it's going to be maybe someone that was running that business for 10, 15, 20 years already, and they just see the company slipping under the waves? What's the ego component of getting them to say, hey, we need some outside help?
It's a very big deal. One of the biggest problems that we end up having is actually that. It's the hardest part. The work that we do to help companies, that's the easy part. That is like, we're going to fix this. The tactical behavior that we come up with is like a return to norm. But the idea of the psychology, to your point, is absolutely enormous, because it's a vulnerable moment. It's a CEO admitting that they don't have all the toolkits. I often joke that, honestly, to be a CEO takes, $25 and a trip to Kinko's or to Instaprint. I've got the card, I've started my business. But that MBA didn't, the lessons don't stop, right? You have to learn those things over time. And you have to be open to the idea that someone can help you, just like a sales consultant, just like a leadership consultant can help you. We're there to help when it's like the waters are too rough. When you see, the ship on the horizon is full of lawyers coming at you. Those are the moments where we're trying to help out. And it's really that when you can be vulnerable for just a minute, we can do fantastic things very quickly. And actually, we tell people, look, the day we arrive, we're leaving. We're here to fix this and get out of the way so that you can go on and be the hero. Another thing we tell people is, look, 2 years from now, if you can listen to us now and be in the moment and then survive this little crisis, 2 years from now, you'll be the leader of this ship. And nobody will remember us at all. You get all the credit for what happened. For taking by really augmenting the team to put a person on it to help you take this, this walk through this very uncharted territory for this part of the dark woods that you just don't know anything about and just need a little bit of help.
Absolutely. And I know one of the things, one of the many, and I do want to get into all the various pillars of the different aspects of what you do. But I know that one thing near and dear to your heart is about saving jobs. These companies that would ordinarily just shut their doors, lay off dozens to hundreds of people. Talk about your passion for saving jobs in the service of these turnaround efforts.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we recognize immediately that an entrepreneur who has built a business and has gone through the painstaking process of picking their teammates and bringing them into the program and keeping them on the team for years, if not decades, has a soul, crushing feel to it if you have to reverse those trends and let people go. Secondly, we know that communities count on these companies. The employees they've created service that community, pay the tax dollars, keep that community going. And when you lose those people, even if it's a large city like a city of Chicago or New York, you're still putting a dent in that city when a small business goes away. It has an impact. We want to stop that part of. We don't want to stop that part. We want to help that part of capitalism, that thing that makes everything grow, but then when it falls down, it really hurts. Try to soften that blow, because we know that not only is the community affected, but we know that families that relied on those businesses are deeply hurt. Not only the employees that, let's say, had a safety net or I'll just go get a job somewhere else. That is also impactful. But we'll talk about the entrepreneur who has a family that is reliant upon them, and they have gone all in on this business, just like they do with their own children. And when that business fails, there can be dire consequences, not only for them personally, but their family and their family dynamic. This is where divorces come into play. This tears families apart. So yeah, we're very mindful. The jobs are extremely important to save.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's also sort of a perception, maybe from movies or TV, or even some of the bad stories from the 1980s and 1990s. Oh, a turnaround guy. He's going to come in. His team is going to fire 80% of the people. They're going to sell off the equipment. They're going to chop this thing up. They're going to, totally gut it and start from the ground up. And I think there's a lot of fear that, turnaround means creative destruction. Talk a little bit about your perspective and your experience and your philosophy around sort of the chopping down the forest and rebuilding versus, hey, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and there are less extreme measures that can be dramatically helpful to a company's turnaround journey.
Well, let's talk about it in the context of small businesses too. And for the audience, we're talking about companies like for the 1 million to 50 million in range. Our average client's around $10 million, which is a really interesting time in a life cycle of a company. But to your point, and the way I bring that up at this point is when we show up at these companies, they've already made some choices. They have cut back on advertising. They've cut back. They may have stopped hiring people. They may have even let some people go. We don't fire a lot of people when we're there. We're down to the point where we have everyone's a single point of failure. If we let Gladys in accounting go, we have no bookkeeper. If we let Bob in shipping go, we have nobody to organize the orders. So you really don't have a whole lot of flexibility. So you're saying, well, how do I juggle this? What are people doing? What are their processes? And getting the team to start rowing in a direction that maybe had not been obvious to the team before, or they felt timid about that step. Maybe they bumped their head, skinned their knee once or twice trying to do that. We're like, okay, let's show you a low cost, very simple way to try and do that same task again that might be more effective, or they take them in a direction they haven't been in. One of the two things that we do that you'll definitely get when you leave Newpoint is you'll end up with what we call a weekly cash flow planning tool, and you will learn the art of KPIs and metrics. These are arts that people, especially the artistes in our world, have a hard time with numbers. We teach them the artistic world of KPIs. So we have to find a way to meet them where they are and then bring them to the normal way you should do these things. And so the cutting of the heads, the slashing and the burning, that happened before we got there. We're teaching you how to keep this ship right. And also at the same time, fires are burning when we arrive, but we're showing you how to put those fires out and then how to get stable. And it doesn't have to come with, selling off all the assets or, firing a bunch of people. Those things can happen, but I will guarantee you that 90% of the time when that happens, it's because you couldn't listen to what we said. And the next level of consequences came at you. That's where the bad stuff happens.
Do you love selling? I know, me too. Do you hate selling? I know, me too. Listen, fantastic sales book you got to get your hands on. How do I know? It's mine. That's how. Do It Selling is now available for sale. Grab your copy, grab all the bonuses, all the companion tools, all the training, all the videos that go with it at doitselling.com. See you over there. Well, let's talk about this because you mentioned about some of the things that you install as kind of a new operating system or new components, new dashboards that now everyone on the leadership team is looking at. So I know that, cash flow is certainly something that you have some rigor and some discipline around. How much is going out, how much is coming in, collecting as much as you can, as fast as you can, and limiting what goes out just to stretch some things out. But also, there's litigation sometimes involved. There's refinancing debt. There is, CXO services, putting a temporary executive in to fill a role or to enhance what that company is doing. Give us, Ken, the sort of, phase one, milder types of interventions.
Yes.
Phase two, a little bit more serious. And then phase three, when it's red alert.
That's right. All right. So in the journey of an entrepreneur, and we talked about that busy entrepreneur running the ship, leadership, giving you, looking out over this thing. We can't tell you when you're going to suddenly realize that you need us. Is the water at your ankles, your knees, your hip, or is it just up over your head? And so different services for those things. And so in the early stages of trouble, we love to be able to help install people in a program we call cash flow coaching, which gets you into this weekly cash flow planning. And it is so helpful. It changes the way not only what the CEO and owner can see, but also how the team communicates. And it actually is a tool for third-party communications. It is fascinating. We tell people the story that, Eskimos have 7 words for the word snow. And inside your organization, your people have about 7 different ways they think about how things work and what the primary function of our business and how we make money. But they're not connected. And so this tool helps us connect those dots. Very powerful tool for getting everyone going the same direction at the same time. If you can't get that early warning, then we're going to meet you when it's time for the turnaround. We're going to now talk about what it is you operationally did not do well. You either broke, or because you're a small entrepreneurial company, you didn't know you were supposed to turn that switch on, or how much. You just hadn't really gone there yet, like an HR function, or maybe in a systems function. Hey, we're good at spreadsheets. We're like, well, that might not help you scale so much. So let's find out the other ways that we need to do things. And that's actually still a place where things are pretty friendly. Yes, we're a little more heavy-handed than we are when we're a coach, but we're there really for you. We're cheering you on. In that same time frame, you might be doing the corporate finance, which is to say, okay, we know places to find capital that is safe versus what you could do by going on the internet and Googling, I'm in trouble, I need money, or I need money now, which is one of those, is a bit like walking into a piranha tank. Entrepreneurs do it every day, and we show up, and it is a bloodbath when we show up. It's a horrible thing to do. People do it all the time. It's the payday loans of the internet. Bad idea. There's also people who will try and steal your company, not just take your money. But there are also but we hope we can help you with our corporate finance capabilities. Beyond that, we get into the place where there may be dragons. And we're in the places where you haven't listened, or we show up and the water really is over your head. Lawyers are present. It's a very messy situation. Your vendors, your friends from the industry are no longer your friends. Now they're vendors, and they're people with lawyers who are trying to collect from you. And scary terms like CXO, CRO, receiver, trustees start to get played in, but we can still create an exit for you in a way out of the situation. It's not too late. But it takes a lot of listening skills that you may be learning for the first time. And then last but not least, unfortunately, failure is always an option in entrepreneurship. We know this because 70% of companies go out of business in the first 10 years. We have to sometimes account for how it happened. And, and that's a story we never want to have to tell, right? We'd rather be there for the hero's journey where you came out of the Phoenix and on went, and we were just part of the helping you out.
Well, let's also talk. I want to kind of go behind the scenes a little bit with your adventures in growing and scaling Newpoint. You had a lot of smart things to say about moving your client base upstream and moving away from the people who would love to work with you, but the ability to pay, the willingness to pay, the eagerness to pay were not there with the smaller fish. And now you learn to fish in a different way with perhaps a different message and a different target market. Talk to us about that growth and how you were able to move away from the people that really could desperately use your help, but did not have the financial wherewithal to engage with you. How did you set up camp in the right lake to catch the right fish with the right bait at the right time?
Yeah. Well, we've always known. So I was a turnaround consultant before starting Newpoint, and which meant I worked with companies $50 million to $1 billion in revenue, big company, and at that point, one guy showing up or a team of people showing up and charging you hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour, it works its way into the working capital and workflow of the company. But with little companies, not so much. And when I started this, and I said, I'm going to go after companies 1 to 50 million in revenue, all of my colleagues in the industry just, they shook their heads and laughed and said, that's not going to work. But I tested it and I knew how to make it work, which was to scale it. And I'm going around this long way to say that when we started the scaling process, which is to add people. So I started as myself, and now we have 30 professionals, but we have a plan to go with a much larger team to be able to reach more people. In that journey, my goal was to serve all companies and help them out. And I truly believe as we get bigger, we will be able to circle back and do that. But to your question of the journey, we were trying to service too many customers. $1 million revenue companies and $50 million revenue companies do not have the same problems. They do not act the same. They don't have the same resources. The solution sets are different, and we know that. And at this point in our journey, we can document that. So we're part of a collective group called Collective 54 that helps professional services firms, as you know. And in that journey, and working with the brains there, showing you how to grow a business, we learned that we were trying to service too many companies, too many different types of companies, and that we were not getting ourselves, we were frustrating the small businesses and not getting paid enough to do the work that we were doing, given who we were set up to be. So we very deftly turned ourselves from 1 to 50 million to 5 to 50 million and changed the curve of who the smaller fish are that we're working with. And that has driven us on our journey to recognize the potential for profitability that we never dreamed of when we started the business. It was like, no, that's not even, professional service companies don't make those kind of margins. Why would we do that? We're not even, why put that on the table? And now we are now at literally almost overnight executing on profit margins that we didn't, it's like Very, very high. I'm not going to use the number, but it's very, very high and very rewarding.
So all of that stemmed from taking your revenue floor of the target company, no longer working with 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4. That wasn't even on the table anymore. But literally just moving the floor from 1 million to 5 million, that attracted a whole bunch of new relationships.
Didn't even attract new relationships as much as it removed the distractions of working with people that we couldn't help anyways.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to change market. This is very important. No, we did not have to shift markets and now suddenly have to talk to different referral sources or have a different message for our market. We just turned one of the messages off. And that clarity has brought us, that ability to streamline and focus. As they say, what the riches are in the niches. We had too many niches. We were not focused enough.
Yeah.
And that's made all the difference.
And Ken, in addition to the revenue target, was there also some deep specialization within the vertical industries that you were serving? So let's say manufacturing versus professional services versus, tech or anything else. Was there a vertical specialization?
It turns out from where we are, we didn't need to do that. Now, we believe over time, we will continue to add people. As the team gets bigger, more of those people will join us. And such as we just brought on a gentleman who has a great healthcare background. So that brings that niche to a place, which is a very hard place to turn things around if you don't understand all the technical, legal things that are going on around you. It can be very overwhelming very quickly and very dangerous for a professional to step in there and try to help somebody and then find out that you also now are entangled in the legal, problems that are going on, which is very real. We have to always know that we are stepping into situations that have legal tripwires and how to avoid those while also doing the good work of turning the company around.
Yes,
but the niches, the vertical niches are not as important in the smaller companies because we're really just trying to help entrepreneurs and tradespeople become business people. It's that conversion that is the most important in our work.
Hey, if you're loving this episode as much as I am, pop over to doitmarketing.com/manifesto and get your free 37-page download guide to how to sell smarter, sell more easily, sell more often. That's what we're here to help you with at The Selling Show. Off you go. I'm curious when you mentioned that there's so many sharks in this field, right? From the payday loans of the internet, the credit repair companies, all of these kind of quick fix places that will steal your money, steal your company, all kinds of bad things. Do you work on a project basis? Do you work on a fixed fee basis? Tell us a little bit about how you've innovated the pricing model as well.
All right, so we're trying to make sure that we're as efficient as possible at Newpoint. And so instead of being hourly billing bespoke people who say, we'll solve any problem you throw at us, just tell us what you got. We said, well, every wreck, or we say every train wreck is different. Every entrepreneurial problem is different. The process for managing that is the same. Couple little tweaks here and there, little riverlets that come off and streams that come off the main river of what we're doing, but we are very focused, and so we spend all of our time designing that process. And by designing that process and being very intentional about it, we've been able to get away from the hourly billing problem and become fixed fee deliverers. And we actually tell people fixed fee, fixed time. Now, outside of the turnaround consulting in certain bespoke areas, everyone's like, well, that's not much of a trick. But it is for this sort of world where you just don't know what's coming at you next and how you risk manage it. So we've been able to do something that our industry just does not do. And it has changed the cost of what we do to be really, we're probably somewhere between 25% and half of the cost of what someone else would be if you went to the person down the street. And I don't want to say bad things about the people in our industry who try to help small businesses. I certainly encourage them to help the entrepreneurial and capital markets of the US. But our solution set has just been built on being laser focused, as we just talked about.
Yeah.
So fixed fee, fixed time. The only time we can't do that is if you get caught in a situation that takes you to court. We mentioned about receivers and trustees. Judges don't go for that sort of thing. So we have to bill by the hour there, but we hope to catch you before that and help you out sooner.
Yes, 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 yes. So you feel, I'm guessing that you feel that you've done a fairly good job in productizing some of the services wherever possible and to whatever extent possible. How are things working on a recurring revenue basis? So for the life of the engagement, is there a monthly number that just keeps rolling in? And then are there things kind of, post recovery that you can help them keep the train on the rails and moving forward successfully? Or once they're turned around and in a good place, we disengage?
It's more to the latter. So we're trying to get in and out in 6 months. That's our average client. All right. So we want to be in and out and have you back on your entrepreneurial journey. One of the things we tell people is, look, if you could do this on your own, you can go read a book, you can think really hard, you can get a coach. It'll probably take you a year and a half to get this right. Probably 3 years to get to the other side of the damage financially that has occurred. We can get you in that position in 6 months. And it's just a different way, but you have to, of course, let this stranger in your house and trust them, which we understand is very difficult. We then try to turn the people on to someone like yourself, who is capable of taking a company that wants to grow and now is stable enough to take on that challenge and pass them along to the rest of the performance improvement world that's out there to help entrepreneurs grow and become profitable.
Yes. Well, that brings us to another big innovation, which is business development. And I know you have an amazing referral network, which we can certainly talk about the referral sources and kind of the ecosystem that you've built around Newpoint. You also put a lot of time and thought and intentionality into not just relying on referrals, not just relying on word of mouth, but really building a business development function inside of Newpoint. Talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and some of the learnings there.
So we actually have now got ourselves ensconced in the early stages of a kind of a 3-tier program. So what you mentioned is we have the referral sources, and we've heard of this as bespoke sales, and that won't ever go away. The referral sources that are lawyers and bankers who call us and say, my client has a problem, will always be there. And they don't really like a whole lot having salespeople around. So someone like me's got to pick up the phone and reach out to them and say, hey, how's it going? Then we have professional sales. So we have channels that are not used to this. So we have accountants that see this stuff and aren't everyday economic development people, private equity, and the list goes on of these different channels that really just need to have a flag waved in front of them. And so we've developed our professional sales team that then tackles those communications with those professionals who do kind of need to be met with another body, but are definitely don't need the high touch that comes with someone like myself reaching out and building decades of relationships with them. And then thirdly, we have the digital marketing side. We know that we need, in order to save the maximum number of jobs and help the most entrepreneurs, we have to get out there and meet the entrepreneurs where they are when they're getting on their keyboard and about ready to make that terrible mistake and look for a payday loan or a collections agency or talking to an equity buyer who is not really an equity buyer, but actually someone who wants to steal from you. Get in at that point, or hopefully before that, and allow them to, give them more choices. And so those things are all happening at once. And they're all integrated with one another from a messaging standpoint and a multi-channel standpoint, multi-professional channel standpoint, and also multi-digital, or if you will, transmission channels. It's an all points bulletin sort of effort we've designed for the growth to be sustainable, to meet companies where they are either in recessionary times or in good times. You have to have all of those things.
I'm curious, based on your previous experience or just based on common sense, when you started Newpoint, day one, did you know that this would be so heavily driven by referrals from a professional ecosystem? And did you go about very intentionally building that professional ecosystem almost from day one? Or did you have some experiments in hunting and fishing on your own first?
Great question. I knew there had to be a critical mass in order to make the investments in those in pro sales and digital sales. Those, for our space, are long-tailed, expensive experiments. So we needed more of a cash-on-cash sort of program. So that ended up being the bespoke sales program. And that lasted as a standalone process for the better part of about 6 or 7 years of our 11 years. And then now we're starting to expand out into other versions of that. And that has been an interesting journey, right? This is not, at this point, I can truly, drop the kimono and say, look, my naked truth is I'm learning. I know everything there is about fixing a company in crisis. I have learned that I know precious little about growing a company, and I have surrounded myself with professionals like yourself and the Collective 54 and others, and ask a lot of annoying questions about how did you do that and how are you doing that? And it's having that intellectual curiosity that's allowed us to grow.
I'm curious, when you're talking about this referral network, I think a lot of founders of professional services firms feel that it needs to be a two-way relationship. Like, I can't ask an attorney to refer people to me unless I have a flow of people to refer to them. And so sometimes it's a equally balanced relationship. For other professionals, they say, hey, you know what? I'm never going to be in a position to send you business because I just don't come across your clients. You come across my clients all the time. And in that case, maybe there's a financial compensation, right? Maybe there's a referral gift or a nice gift certificate for a dinner or a contribution to their favorite charity or however you want to work it. But there is some financial compensation going on. What's the mix in your world? How many of these relationships are compensated? How many are not? How many are one way? How many are two way?
There's very little in terms of compensation, but we do offer it. It is available for certain types of people. Because of the world we deal in, you're actually in the world of what we call fiduciary responsibility. Yeah. And so you got to kind of pick a side. You can't be taking money from everybody. Yeah. And so that identifies who can and who can't. And we're very, very cognizant of that. Then I think you're right. There are people who are from a quid pro quo. Here's a referral. You send me a referral. I send you a referral. Don't get caught up and get lost in that. You are creating value for that person. They're calling you for a reason, and you are actually making them look good. And they go on to tell people how good they look because they know people who know things. And so it's okay to have that imbalance. We have no relationships at Newpoint that is 50-50 or one-on-one. Yeah. They're all imbalanced in some fashion, and it all works.
Yeah, well, what a great come from. Oh my goodness. I mean, that right there, I think, will be a game changer for a lot of people, right? If you're worried about keeping score, if you're worried about, hey, who's sending more one way or the other, then you're not in the giving business, you're in the taking business. And that's the totally wrong come from.
Oh my gosh. That is absolutely. We tell people we're in the business of, we pay it forward. We provide people with opportunities and support, sometimes with no sense of compensation, but just that we've given them a chance to be in the game because we think they're a long-term player, they'll do well, and maybe one day it'll come back, maybe it won't. We're okay with that, but you got to be decided that you're in this for the long term. I'm working on a situation right now where I got a referral from someone that the last time I worked with them was 11 years ago. And then I have another one where it was 15 years ago. That happened a couple months ago. And some of these happen, they're more regular than that, but you're laying seeds. And I think anyone people who master the professional services industry, and I see this with financial service types, particularly people selling in the insurance space, they get it. You start here, start small, and you build over time. And it's not a sprint. All of this is a marathon.
Amen. Could not agree more. Well, I know that most of our listeners never want to talk to you unless they have an amazing referral for you. So please tell folks, how can they get connected and stay connected to more Ken Yager brilliance and all things Newpoint?
Appreciate that. Yes. It could be you or it could be someone else, or you say, I know someone and you want to ask a question that might be very pertinent to you, but still not so, but you want to tell me that it's you. That's okay. But you can reach us at Newpoint at www.newpointadvisors.us. You can email me, K Yager, that's a Yager, at newpointadvisors.us. I'm pretty prevalent on LinkedIn. You can find Ken Yager on LinkedIn. And we also have a 1-800-306-1250 phone number. People can call in and find someone who can help them.
Excellent. And all of those links, by the way, and all of that info will be directly under this episode in the show notes at thesellingshow.com. Ken Yager, you are a rock star. I genuinely say this, that you are one of the good guys in your industry, and your clients are lucky to have you in their corner. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the time. I hope that we've helped somebody today.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.